Did you hear that?
No.
I don't know what it was. It sounded like a train derailing.
In Ohio?
Did you see what happened in Ohio? Holy
I did.
moly.
That's crazy.
They have acid rain. Like you can't go outside.
I saw like some of the photos, and those are clearly like edited. Whether they're photoshopped or not, I'm not going to say, but they're clearly edited. And I'm just thinking, like,
The
Lola
cloud?
is bound to be like, I don't know. Maybe she should go in the body shop business, right?
I don't know what you're talking about. The photos were edited? Which ones?
No, I'm saying like some of the photos that are going around right now are clearly edited, right? They've been enhanced a little bit to make it look ominous, right?
Sure.
Not saying that it's not ominous. I don't know anything about the situation.
A few moments later.
Tonight, emergency crews desperately trying to get control of a potentially deadly situation.
This is a matter of life and death.
The most challenging part of building any estimate is finding the right parts in stock and at the right price. Now, you could open a bunch of tabs, search each vendor's website, enter your customer's vehicle information, and compare pricing and availability. But if you're following the 300% rule, this can take up a lot of your time. That's why Lucas and I both use PartsTech at our shops. It's one website to see an unlimited number of parts and tire vendors. With one click, we can import parts and order them from multiple vendors all at once. And here's the best part. PartsTech is absolutely free to use, and your shop management system is probably already able to connect with it. To get started, just click the link in the show notes or go to partstech.com/podcast. That's partstech.com/podcast. All right. So this person writes on our Facebook group.
Okay.
We are down a man.
Okay.
And it's his brother.
Oh.
Who does all the oil changes and the tires in the shop.
Okay.
This is something my techs all want. They want an oil change and tire person. And I said, no.
Why'd you say no?
I don't know. We don't do enough oil changes and tires, just oil changes and tires, to justify bringing in somebody just so they don't have to do oil changes and tires. It's like, a tenth of your day to do an oil change and a tire swap or tire rotation or whatever.
Well, but I mean, let's think about it. They're going to have, an hour invested in that? They're going to have
Depends
30,
on the tires,
45 minutes.
dude. E-rated tires take some time. They are awful.
Yeah.
They're heavy.
But you've still got one of those old cheap tire changers.
I spent a lot on my tire changer. What are you talking about?
David,
that tire changer
is not a lot.
I wish I had spent $50 on it. That's all it's worth. It's a hunk of crap. I hate my tire changer. It's a Ranger. It's a Ranger, variable speed, designed to do run flats, and it's got the tilt back arm, and it's got the other swing arm that pushes down the thing. Listen, it was expensive. It wasn't Hunter expensive, but it was still expensive.
Who is it in the group that, always in the group that's talking about, Rangers junk, Rangers junk, Rangers junk?
Me? That's me. That's me.
No, I mean, somebody else is always in there saying that.
It's probably me.
No, there's somebody else. There's somebody else who gets so mad, just absolutely freaks out every time.
They're all the same brand. The Ranger tire machine was a piece of crap. My Benpack lift was a piece of crap. And they have had all the problems. I bought a rotary, and it's newer, and I've had to do, other than adjustments, because it'll come out of adjustment, it has had zero problems. Zero.
So I ran a Benpack lift for years, got to know some of the people at Benpack, and I had no issues with my Benpack lift, right? It was a good
You're
lift.
friends with Benpack. Let me tell you, I'm not friends with Benpack. They're junk. All of them.
Junk. Okay, so we better at least read dude's message if we're going to talk about it.
We didn't even get that far. Anyway, he's out for a hernia.
Okay.
Probably doing tires all day long.
Yeah,
that'll give you a hernia. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now we are just rotating the oil changes and tires between everybody.
Okay.
Everyone in the shop makes a minimum of 40 an hour, flagged.
Okay.
They're extremely busy year-round. The problem I have with the guys is that they all want to bitch and whine that they have to do it, which I totally understand. I get the same thing. I told every one of them last week that if they had a problem doing it, they could all find somewhere else to work. That's probably not the best approach.
I agree.
But he was probably frustrated, so I understand that, especially if they're just complaining constantly.
Yeah.
For the life of me, I just don't understand why they have a problem doing it. I've made several hundreds of thousands of dollars off of oil changes over the years. I guess when it comes to oil and tires, they're prima donnas. Not sure if we are the only ones having this kind of issue, or if it's made its round to others.
So for one, my personal thought is like, let's dig in and understand the question a little bit, right? Like, let's figure out why they're frustrated and let's ask that question. And so, I don't
want to try to understand anything. I just want to be reactionary. Constantly, let's try to understand. I don't want to understand nothing. This is let's slow down and try to understand what they're trying to say. It's pretty black and white. He threatened their jobs if they don't shut up and do their jobs. He's paying them to do.
Here's the thing, though, is to solve the problem, we got to understand why they're frustrated, right? And if we understand why they're frustrated,
the text?
is it in my instance, right? I'd probably be in here like, why are your hours low? Why are your hours low? Why are your hours low? And they're going from their bay on one side of the building to the other side of the building to do the tires.
8.5 miles away.
Exactly. And they're
inside
going back
your giant
and forth,
building.
back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Right? And so you got to think those jobs, by the time you pull one out, or you let's say that you go out into the lot, you find the car, you pull it in, you pick it up, you do your DVI on it, whatever it is, you do your oil change, and you do a set of tires, right? Well, here a set of tires is an hour, oil change is 0.5. So that's an hour and a half right there, plus your DVI is half an hour. So guess what? You got 2 hours in it. Now, all of a sudden, you're over here yelling at me because I'm not over here busting out all these other big jobs that I've got. Well, because you just consumed part of my time with this, right? So that's one perspective. The other perspective is, and this is what would upset me, is if they thought that it was below them, if they thought doing oil changes below me, if they thought, doing tires, I'm the owner and I go out and bust tires. I'm the owner, and if I have to, I'll go out and do an oil change, right?
I hire extra people just so I don't have to do that.
I understand that, but I'm saying, like, I'll do quality control. I don't care, right? Like, whatever's got to be done. I clean the toilets. It doesn't hurt my feelings to do the work. And so I guess my point being is it depends on why they're upset about it, on how I respond to it.
The reaction that it's beneath them is wrong. Absolutely. Nothing is beneath me at my business. My time is better served doing other things than busting tires.
Yes.
I could have a bigger impact on the business doing other things than banging out an oil change or doing a tire rotation. I think if you go into the thread, the bigger issue is that this guy was paying very little for the oil change. It was like 0.25, right?
Holy
and
cow.
Almost nothing for the DVI and almost nothing for the tire rotation. So I think he was expecting oil change, tire rotation, and DVI done all within well under an hour.
That's unrealistic.
45 minutes.
It's not possible.
Well, it depends on the length of the DVI. So if you're just doing tires and suspension and brake work, it's like, are the brakes good or yes or no? And you do the shakedown and it's fine, and then you just ship the car out because you're not interested in finding out if the wheel bearings if they're loose. That's one thing, but if they're just starting to make noise, that's a different discussion. Like, they don't want you to go that deep into it. So it really depends on how he sets up the business. And here's the other thing too. This is wild. If all his guys are making over 40 an hour, they must be decently skilled and not so easily replaceable. And I don't understand why he thinks he can come out and tell the technicians, who they may not realize it, have all the leverage, that, hey, you don't like it, there's the door.
A lot of people asked, is this a troll post? There were a lot of questions. Is this a troll post? Surely you don't mean
read
this.
through the comments. You don't read the comments. to depress you if you read the comments.
You're right though. I mean, like, how could you look at this and say that you think it would be a good idea to go and say to them, like, well, I'll go get another job. And so if this isn't a troll post, I think the first question I would ask is, like, are you disconnected? Like, well, I used to do this. Well, I used to do that. When I was a tech, I did this. Just because you were a tech in a business, right? Like, what is it like? You look back at your life with rose-colored glasses. And I had this friend one time, and man, he was talking about his ex-girlfriend, and he was talking about how great she was and how much he loved her. And this guy was talking about leaving his wife and getting back with this girl, right? And I'm like, dude, like, she's got felonies, bro, and she tried to stab you, and all of this crazy stuff happened. And he's like, yeah, well, I mean, yeah, but she's a really good girl. If you knew how good the good times were, bro, you didn't feel that way when you were with her, right? Like, come on now. And so I think we look at the past with rose-colored glasses. I love doing oil changes and tires. I thought it was great. I made $500,000 doing them, bro. You're out of touch with reality. If that's
I think
what
the
you
other
believe,
issue, though, is that they didn't come together to step up and do what needed to be done.
Yes.
While someone in the shop was injured. Yeah. So, when we had a rash of COVID go through the shop, like, everybody had to hunker down and deal with this person being out, then that person being out. And it's whatever. Like, you just got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, of course.
And you just pick up your game to cover the slack left behind by somebody not being able to show up because of a physical
So let me ask you a question, though. What comes first, the horse or the cart? Right? And what I mean by that is, let's think about this for a second. In our shops, we have the culture like, hey, we're just going to do what's got to be done. We're not going to stress about it. We're not going to freak out about it. It's just got to get done. Let's just get it done. Right? Like, this has got to be done. Cool. Not a big deal. We'll do it. It's cool. But if you go into a shop that's got a bad culture, and it's you against me or me against you, and we're all, infighting constantly.
You're calling it a bad culture, but this guy may have cultivated that culture. It may have been like it's a Chris Collins thing. It's gamification. Let's gamify
I understand
production.
that.
Okay,
but all I'm trying to say,
you've made the shop competitive.
All I'm trying to say is, if that is in fact the case, you've made your bed, you got to lay in it. Right? Like, if that's the case, if you've created a bad culture in the shop, and let's not even call it a bad culture. If you created a culture where it's all about production, it's all about go, 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 go. It's not about helping your fellow technician. It's not about doing what's right for the client. It's about right here, right now. We got to go. Right? If that's what it's about, then of course that's what they're going to do, because that's the relationship you've built in the business. That's how they see the business. That's what they think is normal. Yeah,
you've hired that personality, the person that's willing to do whatever they got to do to get those numbers, and they just want to bang out hours. All of a sudden, you just slowed them up. And you said, hey, I need you to do tire rotation, oil changes, which we don't pay enough for you to do them profitably, but you now have to do it. And it's like, whoa, I didn't sign up for this. This was not the agreement. The agreement was you have somebody do this low-paying work so you can bring in cars because you're selling it at a discount. That's probably what's happening here. Yeah. He's selling the tire rotation oil change for $24.99 and the DVI is free. So $25, and you are, just like you kind of mapped out, you're going to take up 2 hours of your $40 an hour technician's time for $25. Yep. Well, you're selling it for $25 to get the car in the door. So now you've hired someone in at a really low rate to bang that work out, but all of a sudden that person's gone. The easier thing to do is just find somebody else to do it. Yeah, hire somebody in at $15 an hour, $12.50. Yeah, like that's the easier thing to do. But to say that, hey, you $40 an hour technicians have to now do this 2 hours worth of work in less than an hour because that's all I'm going to pay you. I'm going to end up paying you 0.5 to do all this work. There's no way they can win. They didn't sign up for that.
I have a real problem, right? I have a real problem with this mindset or this idea that it's okay, especially if somebody's on flag. I have a real problem with coming back and saying that I'm going to pay them less than the job takes and say that it's an opportunity. I don't agree with that. How do you feel about that?
If they signed up for it, that's what they signed up for. So if they're like, hey, I'm not going to pay you to do the DVIs, we're not taking in any money. We're not going to pay you for it. But if they are purely commissioned, which is at the end of the day, flat rate is just it's straight commission.
Right. And we need to say this, right? Because we're talking about it right here. We need to say, like, we're not talking about a 40-hour guarantee. When we talk about straight commission, we're talking about no guarantee.
No guarantee, yeah.
No guarantee whatsoever. So if you turn 2 hours, you get paid 2 hours. If you turn 60 hours, you get paid 60
I think that the only guarantee would have to be the minimum wage for that state for 40 hours, however long they're there. So if they have to clock in, clock out, and if they don't flag enough hours to hit that minimum wage.
Yeah, I mean, dude, some shops are still paying just straight commission. They're not even paying minimum wage. And that's illegal, right?
That is illegal. But let's just assume they're doing things legally and they're not doing anything illegal.
You know, and I heard a coach one time, and I can't remember exactly how they said it, but they were talking about that, and they were talking about flat rate and whatever, and I can't remember. Gosh, train of thought's derailed. It's the way that the coaches, some of the coaches that teach that flat rate mentality teach it. Man, it's shady as all get out. Right? Shady as all get out.
What's shady? What do you mean?
I just think that a lot of those coaches, when they teach paying your guys flat rate, and it's like, hey, you get the work in and out, you get the work in and out, you get the work in and out. The whole focus is not about the client. The whole focus is not about the shop. The whole focus is slam the cars as fast and as quickly as you can slam the cars, right? And I get that is what flat rate is. Don't misunderstand. I'm just saying, and the truth of the matter is if I say what I was going to say, that it's easily identifiable to the person who said it. And I hate to.
Anyway, I think the bigger point is if you want to set up the shop that way, fine. Set up the shop that way.
Yeah.
But just like we're saying, don't get upset if those guys that you hired in to do nothing but production work as fast as possible, all of a sudden you're telling them to slow up. That's going to end up impacting their paycheck at the end of the week. And again, they didn't sign up for that. That's not even the culture you've cultivated.
Yeah.
You've cultivated this culture of, we're super busy. I need you to do this 10 hours worth of work in 8. And I need you to do it every single day, with minimal comebacks. Go. Right. And then all of a sudden, whoa, stop. I need you to do this 2 hours worth of work, oil change, tire rotation for essentially $0 because I'm collecting 25.
The mentality of that my only job is to make sure you have enough cars, right? I'm not going to give you a guarantee on flat rate. What I'm going to do is I'm going to guarantee you a number of cars, right? And it's your job to find the work on it, right?
So obviously I'm like, that's not what I do at all. I think that's awful. But if you set up the shop that way, that's fine.
Yep.
But don't complain when the technicians that you hired to be in this environment don't want to all of a sudden change the way they operate because of an extenuating circumstance. I understand there's an extenuating circumstance and that you need them to shift, but that's not what you've created here. You've created this culture, you've created this business to work in a certain manner. It works in that manner, and you're now changing what you want out of them.
Yeah.
And that's unfair to them.
Absolutely.
And regardless of how much you're willing to pay them, regardless of all of a sudden you're like, well, okay, I'll pay half hour for an oil change and this much for a DVI and this, that. The financials may not allow you to do that. You may not be charging the customers enough. You may be discounting all this so much. You can't possibly pay these techs 2 hours to do $25 in gross revenue. Yeah. That wouldn't work very well.
And not for long anyway.
So your easier solution is to just get somebody hired as quickly as possible. Get somebody in that's inexpensive, or go out there and bang out the tire rotations and oil changes yourself and leave the technicians to do what they were paid to do. That's what you hired them to do, is to do this like fast production work.
Yep.
You have to leave them at that. You're changing the contract. And if you had hired them in and say, hey, this is the common goal, and we all work towards this common goal, for XYZ reasons, and we're going to do whatever it takes to hit this common goal. Do you want to be part of this team? And then they go, yeah, I want to be part of that. Then great, let's work towards that together, and we'll do whatever it takes. Then if all of a sudden you're like, hey, I need you to start doing tires and oil changes, and they don't want to do it, well, hold on now. You signed up towards this common goal, and that's what we need you to do now.
This was your job description.
Yes. And that's what we need you to do. You need to step it up. And if you're not willing to do that, then I can understand separating them from the company, because they signed up under false pretenses. They told you, it was lip service. They told you they would do this thing. Now they're unwilling to do it because maybe they got used to doing something different. But that's not what you signed up to do. So I don't know. He's got a tough road ahead of him. Unless he hires a GS.
What do you think about
problem solved?
What do you think about the amount paid on the inspection or the DVI and the amount paid on the oil
I think it's
change?
probably dictated by the financials. He's probably got it to a dollar amount where I can come close to breaking even.
Do you think it's okay, though?
Would I do it? No, I would not do it.
Yeah,
I wouldn't do it. I think it's but the entire business may be built around that. $25. Look, there's a chain down the street from me. Does $25 semi or synthetic blend oil changes. $25 synthetic blend oil changes with a free tire rotation and a DVI. They do all of that for $25, and they don't pay their technicians. They pay the technicians a percentage of parts and labor sold. They get a set amount on the labor and then a percentage of all the parts sold. So these guys are incentivized to take the tires off, inspect absolutely as much as they can, but they're going to only sell what they're good and fast at selling. It's like, I can sell that ball joint, I can sell those tire audits, I can sell that alignment, I can sell those brakes, because that's what I'm really fast at doing. But I'm going to ignore that vacuum pump gasket that's leaking, or that weird noise that's coming from the back of the cylinder head, or those exhaust bolts that are busted, right? Like, those exhaust bolts are broken. I can see that they're broken, but you know what? There is no chance in hell I'm making money on that job. So I'm not even going to say anything.
Here's the thing, though, is that the owners who are running operations like that do not believe for half a second that their guys would do that. I've talked to lots of people who run like that, and they genuinely believe that their guys would document everything. Do you think that's true? I mean, you just said you don't, but you know, what about these people who continually say that it is true? Do you think they're fooling themselves?
You are going to get the behavior. You're incentivizing the behavior to be a certain way. That's what you're going to get 100% of the time. If you incentivize it, I don't care what you profess to say. I don't care what your meetings are about. I don't care that you're like, you know, and the evenings you're all getting together and you know, throwing hatchets or doing game rooms, or none of that matters. You are incentivizing them to do things a certain manner. That's what they're going to do, because it doesn't pay to do it any other way.
I agree.
And they may feel compelled by their conscience to do it slightly different, but just like we've talked about, there's that 80% that is going to swing one way or the other, because the environment shapes their moral compass. And they may have come in and said something at the very beginning when they got hired on, like, hey, I got to say something about these exhaust bolts. But over time, they lost their asses on those exhaust bolts so many times
that they just know better.
They know better not to say anything. And now they're like, they may say something, but hey, don't sell it. Like, hey, we can't do it here. Take it to the dealer. I'm not going to lose my money on that job, but I'll do those ball joints, tires, and whatever.
Yep.
You know, and I'm not saying that they're wrong for doing it. I'm just saying that's the shop. That's what the shop conditions dictate.
Yeah.
And so if they were really that upset about it, like, I really need to tell these people about these exhaust bolts, go work at a different shop. But you don't care, and it's benign in your head. You're like, it's whatever. They can go. Right. They can go find somewhere else to deal with those. Here, I'm going to take care of the safety stuff, because that's what's important, and they justify it however they want.
Right. I agree. Hey, last night got a message about a guy who had just moved employers. You know what I'm talking about? I share that with you.
Maybe.
So guy
Oh.
moves from one employer
Yeah.
to another employer, and knows that the new employer has a shop coach. And so when he moves, one of the things that he thought was odd is that they charged him to move his toolbox, which I personally think is really weird. Right? Like, you're trying to hire techs, man. I'm not going to make them pay to move their toolbox. Come on now. So they charged him to move his toolbox. And then after they move his toolbox, he noted that the price to move the toolbox was really expensive. And he's like, well, supposedly that's what they charged him, but everybody else would have been $100, right? So, like, in the back of my head, I'm thinking, did dude mark up moving his toolbox?
Marked up his toolbox move.
Right? And so he's fairly new at this shop, right? And he said he's beginning to notice some trends.
Dude, this
Right.
this is like red flag city. Like,
Yeah.
okay, well, like technicians. We're gonna get like, I don't know, maybe 1,000 views on this video, and maybe 700 of them will be technicians or so, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Maybe it'll be 100,000. You never know. You need to ask questions of your prospective employer. For example,
You're interviewing them too.
you are interviewing them too. So if they tell you, have you ever been a technician? No. Have you worked in the automotive industry? No. What did you do before? I was a software engineer for XYZ Corporation. Okay. And I bought this business as retirement money. What? Yeah, I had all this money and I decided to buy this business, and because I want a 15 to 20% return on my money for the next 5 years, and then I'm going to package all these businesses out and I'm going to sell them. Okay, great. That should be, if you're not wanting to work in the environment that we just kind of talked about, that should be all sorts of red flags.
Yeah.
All sorts of red flags.
Yeah.
Like, hey, this guy's going to come at me wanting to know why I haven't hit my numbers. Not want to listen to me that, hey, you don't buy good enough gloves and I keep tearing them, so I'm going through lots of boxes. Can you buy these better gloves? That ain't going to be the discussion. The discussion's going to be, hey, you were hired to flag me 50 and you flagged me 42. Why?
Yep. Absolutely. Well,
Okay.
and that's what we talked about last night as we had that discussion, is that the whole purpose for them is revenue generation. It's not about the client. It's not about the technician.
Making the business sellable.
Exactly.
That's
it's
all I care about.
about.
That's all that matters.
It's all about the numbers. And so in listening to this conversation, he's talking about, like, well, they brought me on to be a diag guy and a A-level technician. And I'm getting paid very well, and I'm promised this, and I'm promised that. And he's like, all of a sudden, the promises are dropping like flies.
Yeah.
And I know he's going to watch this video and listen to it. Like, get the heck out, right? Don't wait for it to blow up in your face.
Run.
Right, exactly, because it's not going to be good.
Unless
right?
that's what you want to do. But places like that, places that are paying 0.25 to do oil changes, are not going to get into like hard diagnostic work. Like, that's not what they're doing. Is coil swapping. Swaptronics is diagnostic work to them. Yep. And you're like, hey, I want to do an in-cylinder pressure transducer reading, blah blah. Like, they're gonna be like, whoa. No, that goes to the dealer. We're not gonna do head work on the Subaru here because it doesn't pay well enough, and I don't have anybody here that can do it in 4 hours because it pays 6. That's not what we're gonna do. Yep. We're going to shipping that off somewhere else. It's like, okay, so what do you want me doing all day? I need you to check engine lights and do swaptronics. And if you don't have it ready in 30 minutes, it's going to the dealer. So
that was the whole big conversation the other day. Less than 30 minutes. Less than 30 minutes.
Yeah, his job is not going to be, can this be diagnosed in 30 minutes or less? Yes or no? And if it's a no, off to the dealer it goes.
Yep.
So that's what he signed up for. Sorry.
Well, And look, I think it's odd you bring that up because I hear that from so many places, right? I hear it from so many techs, and man, it's like this badge of honor that these technicians in these shops wear. I diagnosed something that no one else could fix. No, you diagnosed something that no one else would fix. They shipped it out because it wasn't profitable, right, wrong, or indifferent.
Yeah. That might be the case, but there's always easily, hey, went to incompetent shop, and now you were able to figure it out. But regardless of that, that's not what this guy signed up for. I'm sure in his mind, he's like, oh, I'm going to be a Keith Perkins, or I'm going to be a Matt Skundrick, or I'm going to be a, you know what I'm saying? Like in their minds, they're like, oh, I'm going to be Scanner Danner, like figuring this stuff out in this guy's shop. And all of a sudden they're like, hey, you got 30 minutes to figure out
Why are you not done yet?
Like,
Why
aren't you done yet? Yeah.
Right.
That's how the shop's set up. And he should have asked better questions before he went and jumped ship.
I
And
agree.
I feel bad
You
for
need
him.
to learn to interview your potential employer.
100%. All right.
Yep.